Have you ever wondered what would have happened if all three members of the monster trio were reborn with all of their memories? Could they prevent every tragedy from happening, or would some events remain inevitable? Well, before we answer that, let's start with Luffy. After being reborn with all of his memories, Luffy has no idea what's happening. At first, he thinks it's just a dream, or perhaps the effect of someone else's devil fruit ability, but as time passes, he realizes everything is real. He has truly been reborn with all of his memories intact. In this timeline, he still eats the gum gum fruit, already knowing everything the fruit is capable of. The mountain bandits still appear, but unlike in the original timeline, Luffy doesn't get provoked by them. As a result, Shanks never loses his arm. Now, this isn't necessarily a good thing, since the latest chapters revealed that his missing arm bore the Shallow's Covenant mark connected to Emu. For the sake of this timeline, we'll simply assume Shanks cuts off his own arm later in the story. After spending a few more years in Fuchsia Village, Shanks finally sets sail. Before leaving, he entrusts Luffy with the straw hat. From that point on, Luffy begins training with his devil fruit. Even though he remembers every technique he once used, his young body still isn't strong enough to perform them. After years of training, he finally regains access to all of his old techniques and sets sail at the age of 17. From here, the story plays out almost exactly the same. Luffy meets Kobe, defeats Alvida, and eventually arrives at Shellstown. There, he finally sees Zoro waiting for the captain he already knows is coming. Now let's see what happens to Zoro after being reborn. Just like Luffy, Zoro is confused at first, but eventually realizes everything is real. His main objective is simple: train. Knowing what will happen in the future, Zoro goes easy on Kina during their duels and constantly reminds her how talented she is. More importantly, he makes sure she never suffers the accident that originally took her life, warning her to be careful around the stairs and doing everything he can to prevent her death. This may seem like the perfect outcome, but it comes with one major consequence. Because Kuina survives, Zoro never inherits the Wado Ichimonji. However, after witnessing Zoro's incredible talent and determination, Shimotsuki Kushiro decides to gift him another high-quality sword worthy of becoming his partner on the path to becoming the world's strongest swordsman. In the present, after meeting Luffy, Zoro immediately breaks free. Together, the two defeat the Marines and set sail. As they talk, they quickly realize that both of them have actually been reborn with all of their memories. In Orangetown, Luffy and Zoro effortlessly blitz the buggy pirates. After witnessing their strength, Nami temporarily joins the crew as their navigator. During the Syrup Village arc, their knowledge of the future allows them to easily defeat Captain Kuro and recruit Usopp. As a reward, they receive their first real ship, the Going Merry. The crew then sails to the Bharati, where they finally meet Sanji, who greets them with tears in his eyes. In this timeline, Sanji's childhood is far less tragic because of his memories. Instead of breaking under Germa's abuse, he remains completely stoic while secretly training his body and laying the foundation for observation and armament hockey years earlier than before. Around the Germa kingdom, he pretends to fit in, but he spends as much time as possible with his mother, Sora. Thanks to his memories and cooking skills, instead of presenting Sora with a ruined lunchbox, young Sanji prepares a meal worthy of a master chef. After Sora's death, Sanji still escapes the Germa kingdom. However, when he eventually meets Zeph, he is able to save his leg. Knowing exactly how long they'll be stranded, Sanji carefully rations their food, ensuring they both survive without Zeph having to sacrifice his own leg. Back in the present, Sanji serves the crew the best food possible before warning everyone that a pirate crew will soon attack the Bharati. The moment he says that, Luffy and Zoro realize Sanji has also been reborn with all of his memories. When Don Krieg finally attacks, the monster trio completely humiliates and defeats his crew with ease. Seeing their overwhelming strength, Nami tells them the truth about Arlong instead of betraying them and asks for their help. Without hesitation, the trio agrees and immediately sets sail for Arlong Park. Even before Mihawk arrives, Zoro considers staying behind to challenge him. However, Luffy and Sanji convince him to leave, knowing there will be a better opportunity for their duel in the future. When they arrive at Arlong Park, they easily defeat Arlong and free Nami's village. With that settled, the crew heads to Logtown. This time, Buggy and Alvida don't even dare challenge them. After gathering the supplies they need, the Straw Hats leave the island before Smoker has a chance to interfere. In the Reverse Mountain arc, the crew is swallowed by the giant whale Laboon and meets Crocus alongside the Baroque Works agents Mr. Nine and Miss Wednesday. Similar to the original timeline, the two agents initially pretend to be ordinary bounty hunters. However, after meeting Miss Wednesday, the monster trio immediately reveals that they know she is Princess Vivi of Alabasta and that they know everything currently happening in her kingdom. They then offer to help save Alabasta. Vivi is suspicious at first, but after hearing everything they know about Crocodile and Baroque Works, she eventually decides to trust them and accepts their offer. Before leaving, Luffy still makes his promise to Laboon. After arriving at Whiskey Peak, the crew pretends to fall for the town's fake hospitality. The moment the bounty hunters reveal their true intentions, Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji effortlessly defeat every Baroque Works agent on the island. They then travel to Little Garden, where just like in the original timeline, they meet Dory and Brogy, defeat Mr. 3 and the other Baroque Works agents, and trick Crocodile over a Denden Mushi. Afterward, they head straight to Drum Island before Nami even becomes sick. There, they recruit Chopper, defeat Wapol, and continue directly toward Alabasta. During the journey, Luffy explains everything he remembers about Crocodile and Baroque Works, allowing the crew to prepare for the battle ahead. When they arrive in Alabasta, instead of wandering through the desert, they head straight for Rain Base. There, they also reunite with Ace, who is searching for Blackbeard. Rather than stopping him, Luffy decides to let Ace continue his pursuit, believing it will be easier to save him later when everything unfolds as he remembers. Knowing about Crocodile's trap in advance, the Straw Hats avoid the casino ambush and force him into an open confrontation. Now capable of using Haki, Luffy defeats Crocodile with ease instead of nearly dying multiple times. Meanwhile, Zoro and Sanji overpower Mr. 1 and Mr. 2 without much difficulty. By the end of the arc, Crocodile is arrested, Vivi chooses to remain in Alabasta, and Robin joins the Straw Hats just as she did in the original timeline. The Skypiea saga plays out almost exactly the same, with the Straw Hats defeating Enel much more easily thanks to their memories. Since nothing changes significantly, we'll skip ahead to the Water 7 arc. After leaving Skypiea, the Going Merry is badly damaged. No matter how much the trio knows about the future, there isn't much they can do to prevent the Merry from eventually being replaced. When they arrive at Water 7, the trio briefly considers telling Robin the truth. However, after spending over 20 years being betrayed by everyone she ever trusted, they realize she wouldn't easily believe that she deserves to live. So, in order to both save Robin and recruit Frankie, they decide to let the Enies Lobby incident play out. When the shipwrights of the Galley Law Company examine the Going Merry and declare it beyond repair, the trio tries to convince Usopp to accept the truth. However, he still leaves the crew out of anger and challenges Luffy to a duel. Soon afterward, Aqua Laguna crashes into Water 7. By then, Robin and Frankie have already been captured by CP9. The remaining Straw Hats, along with Usopp disguised as Soga King, board the Rocketmen and head straight for Enies Lobby to rescue them. After Luffy publicly declares war on the world government by ordering Soga King to burn down its flag, Robin finally cries out that she wants to live. The moment she does, Luffy immediately activates Gear 5, rescues Robin, and quickly defeats Rob Lucci. At the same time, Zoro and Sanji overpower Kaku and Jabra. Because CP9 is defeated so quickly, Spandam never gets the chance to accidentally trigger the Buster Call. After successfully rescuing Robin and Frankie, the Going Merry arrives one final time to save the crew before making its emotional final voyage and breaking apart. By the end of the arc, Usopp rejoins the Straw Hats. Frankie joins the crew, the Thousand Sunny is completed, and they leave Water 7 before Garp has a chance to confront them. The Straw Hats then enter the Florian Triangle as usual. Before arriving at Thriller Bark, they meet Brook. After hearing his story, Luffy immediately offers to help retrieve his shadow in exchange for him joining the Straw Hats. Luffy also tells Brook that Laboon is still waiting for him, making Brook even more determined to join the crew. When they arrive at Thriller Bark, Luffy tells everyone to stick together since he already knows about Maria's shadow-stealing zombies. As a result, Maria is unable to steal the Straw Hat's shadows, and Absalom never gets the chance to kidnap Nami. Meanwhile, Zoro and Sanji quickly defeat the zombie generals. Since Maria never obtains Luffy's shadow, he is forced to use a different shadow to awaken Oars. However, the moment Oars appears, Luffy activates Gear 5, transforms into his giant form, and defeats Oars with ease. Without Oars protecting him, Moria is forced into a direct fight, and Luffy defeats him much earlier than in the original timeline. Soon after Moria's defeat, Kuma arrives at Thriller Bark. Since Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji already know Kuma isn't truly their enemy, they don't attack him. Instead, they reveal that they know about Bonnie, the Revolutionary Army, and that Kuma only came to Thriller Bark to test whether the crew possessed the loyalty and resolve to support Dragon's son. Hearing this, Kuma is left completely shocked. Luffy simply tells him that they will meet again very soon, but for now, he should return to where he came from. As a result, Zoro's iconic "Nothing happened moment never takes place. Not only is Luffy still conscious, but he also took very little damage during the battle. After Kuma leaves, the Straw Hats celebrate their victory with a huge party before officially welcoming Brook as the newest member of the crew. The crew's next destination is the Sabaody Archipelago. After arriving, they meet the other notorious rookie pirates with bounties exceeding 100 million berries, collectively known as the Worst Generation. When the world noble shoots Hatchin and attempts to enslave Kami, Luffy doesn't hesitate. Just like in the original timeline, he punches the Celestial Dragon so hard that he sends him flying. Assaulting a Celestial Dragon immediately summons a Marine Admiral, triggering an overwhelming military response. However, this time the monster trio is simply too powerful. Within minutes, Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji effortlessly defeat the Marines sent to stop them. Soon afterward, Kizaru arrives on the battlefield, but instead of being completely overwhelmed like before, the trio is able to fight an admiral head-on, shocking every pirate on the island. Just then, Rayleigh steps in and clashes with Kizaru. Taking advantage of the distraction, Luffy secretly approaches Kuma. He asks Kuma to teleport the weaker members of the crew, Nami, Usopp, Chopper, Robin, Frankie, and Brook, to different islands best suited for their growth. Even though the monster trio has become incredibly powerful, the rest of the crew is still far too weak for the new world, perhaps even weaker than they were in the original timeline. Luffy then asks Kuma to send him, Zoro, and Sanji directly to Impel Down. Once they arrive, their mission to rescue Ace begins. Although the guards of Impel Down are incredibly powerful, none of them are strong enough to stop the trio. Even Magellan struggles, as Luffy simply rubberizes his poison attacks. The three fight their way through the prison and eventually reach level 6, where they free Ace and Jinbei before immediately attempting to escape. After learning about the massive prison break, the Marines dispatch Kizaru from Sabaody due to his unmatched speed. They also send a large military force to prevent the escape. Realizing they need more manpower, Luffy forms a temporary alliance with Crocodile, Buggy, and several other level 6 prisoners. While the monster trio battles Kizaru, the escaped prisoners hold off the Marines. After an intense battle, Luffy finally defeats Kizaru. The group then seizes a Marine battleship and successfully escapes Impel Down. As a result, the Marineford War never takes place. Whitebeard remains one of the 4 emperors, meaning Blackbeard never acquires the Guragura no Mi, although he still recruits the powerful level 6 prisoners after becoming a warlord. Ace returns to the Whitebeard pirates, continues growing stronger, and helps protect Whitebeard's territory in the new world. Meanwhile, Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji remain at Sabaody, training together for the next 2 years. Knowing their crewmates are also growing stronger on their respective islands, the trio patiently waits until it's finally time to reunite. After 2 years, the crew finally reunites at Sabaody before heading straight to Fishman Island. Upon arriving, they meet King Neptune and Princess Shirahoshi. There, Luffy offers to act as Shirahoshi's bodyguard so she can finally visit her mother's grave. Meanwhile, Hody Jones launches his attack on Ryugu Palace, but unfortunately for him, he runs into Zoro instead. Hody desperately consumes large amounts of energy steroids to increase his strength, but he is still no match for Zoro, who defeats him with ease and ties him up. At the same time, Luffy and Shirahoshi meet Jinbei. After learning that Hody has been captured, Hody's 100,000 Fishman army launches a full-scale assault on Ryugu Palace. That's when the Straw Hats step in and demonstrate just how powerful they've become, effortlessly defeating all 100,000 Fishmen. In a final act of desperation, Vanderdecken uses his Devil Fruit to hurl the colossal ancient Ark Noah toward Fishman Island, intending to crush Shirahoshi and the entire kingdom. Luffy immediately activates Gear 5 and transforms into his giant form. However, instead of destroying the Ark, he attempts to pull it away from the island. At that moment, Shirahoshi cries out in desperation, unintentionally summoning the giant Sea Kings, who tow the damaged Noah safely to the Sea Forest. Unlike in the original timeline, Luffy never gets the chance to declare war on Big Mom, since Fishman Island remains under Whitebeard's protection. The crew's next destination is Punk Hazard. Upon arriving, the monster trio tells the rest of the crew everything they know about Caesar's experiments and the kidnapped giant children. Instead of spending time investigating, they head straight for Caesar's laboratory. Chopper immediately begins treating the children while Robin and Nami stay behind to protect them. Luffy still meets Law, and when Law proposes an alliance to take down Kaido, Luffy immediately agrees. When Luffy finally confronts Caesar, the scientist has absolutely no chance. With Gear 5 and his knowledge of Caesar's abilities, Luffy defeats him almost instantly, while the SAD production room is destroyed. At the same time, Zoro and Sanji defeat Virgo and Monet, while the crew rescues Momonosuke much earlier than in the original timeline. Luffy even reveals that Momonosuke is Kazuki Oden's son son and the future shogun of Wano, completely shocking him. With Caesar captured so quickly, Doflamingo immediately realizes something has gone wrong and personally heads to Punk Hazard. Upon arriving, he finds Luffy already waiting for him in Gear 5. The two immediately clash, and Law soon joins the battle. Together, they defeat Doflamingo before the Dressrosa arc even begins. After handing the giant children over to the Marines, the Straw Hats sail for Dressrosa. Since Ace is still alive in this timeline, the Kurita Coliseum tournament never takes place. After arriving, Robin and Usopp quickly locate the Tontada Kingdom and reveal the truth about how Doflamingo had been abusing and exploiting the Tontadas. With Doflamingo gone, the remaining Don Quixote family officers have no real leader. Zoro and Sanji easily defeat the remaining executives without Luffy needing to step in. The crew soon encounters Sugar, and just like in the original timeline, Usopp accidentally terrifies her into losing consciousness, instantly turning every living toy back into a human. During the celebration, Luffy reunites with Sabo. Since Ace never died in this timeline, Sabo never regained his memories from reading the newspaper. Instead, seeing Luffy in person finally restores all of his memories. As a result, Luffy never forms the Straw Hat Grand Fleet since the Kurita Coliseum tournament never happens. Ironically, this works out perfectly, as Luffy never wanted a Grand Fleet in the first place. After leaving Dressrosa, the Straw Hats sail to Zoo, where they discover their first road poneglyph. Not long afterward, Big Mom forces Sanji into a political marriage with her daughter, just like in the original timeline. However, the Monster Trio already knows that Big Mom intends to use the wedding to eliminate both the Vinsmoke family and the Straw Hats. Instead of refusing the invitation, they decide to attend. Not only is it the perfect opportunity to obtain another road poneglyph, but it also gives them a chance to take down one of the 4 emperors. Upon arriving at Whole Cake Island, the crew quickly reunites with Capone Bedge. Since they already know he plans to betray Big Mom, they immediately form an alliance with him. Sanji then reveals the truth about Big Mom's assassination plot to his family. Although the Vinsmokes don't believe him at first, they decide to prepare for the worst. During the wedding, Big Mom's assassination plan completely falls apart. Instead of being caught off guard, the Vinsmoke family, the Fire Tank Pirates, and the Straw Hats launch a coordinated counterattack. As chaos erupts, Brooks successfully copies the road poneglyph without anyone noticing. Luffy then confronts Big Mom, but Katakuri steps in to stop him. This becomes Luffy's first truly difficult battle since being reborn. Even so, because he already understands future sight, Luffy eventually defeats Katakuri after an intense fight. Meanwhile, Zoro and Sanji defeat the remaining Sweet Commanders, preventing them from assisting Big Mom. With Katakuri finally defeated, Luffy rejoins Zoro and Sanji, and the 3 of them battle Big Mom together. While the Monster Trio keeps the Emperor occupied, the rest of the Straw Hats, Jinbei, the Fire Tank Pirates, and the Vinsmokes fight the remaining Big Mom pirates. After an incredibly intense battle, the Monster Trio finally defeats Big Mom. With their objective complete, the Straw Hats escape Whole Cake Island with a copy of the road poneglyph. This also means Pedro survives in this timeline, and Jinbei is finally able to join the Straw Hats without being left behind. News of Big Mom's defeat quickly spreads across the world. With one of the 4 emperors defeated and her crew thrown into chaos, the balance of power is shattered. Before long, Luffy is officially recognized as one of the new 4 emperors, even before arriving in Wano. After leaving Whole Cake Island, the Straw Hats sail straight to Wano. Upon arriving, Luffy immediately heads to Amigasa Village to reunite with Tama. To his surprise, he also finds Ace there. Since Ace never died in this timeline, he returned to Wano to fulfill the promise he once made to Tama. Because the Monster Trio already knows about Kaido's alliance with Orochi, the Akazaya 9, the location of the road poneglyph, and Kanjuro's betrayal, they skip months of planning entirely. After reuniting with the Akazaya 9 and Law, Luffy exposes Kanjuro, revealing that he has been secretly feeding information to Orochi all along. Realizing his cover has been blown, Kanjuro immediately attacks, confirming Luffy's claims. As a result, Momonosuke is never kidnapped, the Alliance never loses its ships, and the raid on Onigashima begins exactly as planned. Before the raid, Luffy heads to Uden Prison. Since he no longer needs the training he received there in the original timeline, he simply frees the prisoners, defeats Queen with ease, and recruits the imprisoned samurai to the Alliance. After being rescued, Kid also joins the raid. With almost no setbacks, the Alliance launches its assault on Onigashima much earlier than in the original story. This time, Ace also joins the battle against the Beast Pirates. During the raid, Zoro battles King while Sanji and the remaining Straw Hats take on the Tobirapo. Ace reunites with Yamato, and the two fight side by side against Kaido's forces. Meanwhile, Luffy, Law, and Kid confront Kaido on the rooftop. Even with all of his memories and experience, Luffy still struggles against the world's strongest creature. However, after defeating King much earlier than in the original timeline, Zoro realizes what's happening on the rooftop and joins the battle. Sanji soon follows, now facing the full strength of the monster trio alongside Law and Kid. Even Kaido is eventually overwhelmed and defeated. After Kaido falls, Onigashima begins plummeting toward the flower capital. Fortunately, Momonosuke successfully creates enough flame clouds to guide the island safely to the ground. At the same time, Orochi is finally defeated by the Akazaya 9. Shortly after the battle, Admiral Ryokugyu arrives in Wano. However, since the monster trio already knows he is coming, they immediately confront him. Completely outmatched, the Admiral is forced to retreat almost as soon as he arrives. Following the defeat of 2 emperors, Luffy's bounty rises to 4 billion berries. With both Kaido and Big Mom gone, the balance of power shifts once again. Cross Guild rises to fill the vacant position, making the new 4 emperors the Straw Hat Pirates, the Whitebeard Pirates, the Red Hair Pirates, and Cross Guild. And that's where this alternate timeline comes to an end. Since Egghead Island marks the beginning of One Piece's ongoing final saga, we'll leave the story here. Let me know in the comments what you think would happen next in this timeline. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out my other one where I explained all 16 Devil Fruit Awakenings in One Piece.